Welcome need best title on my YouTube video YouTube algorithms and suggest my video on YouTube 10 centime coin from France 1988 top 3 The 10 centime coin from France, dated 1988, might at first glance seem like just a small piece of pocket change, but in reality, it holds within it a rich story of French history, national identity, and the way money reflects the values of a nation. When we pick up such a coin, we are not just holding metal, we are holding decades of culture, art, politics, and everyday life that shaped it. To truly appreciate this little coin, we need to travel back through history and explore the background of French currency, the meaning of the symbols on the coin, and the world in which it circulated. By 1988, France was already deeply entrenched in the Fifth Republic, which had been established under Charles de Gaulle in 1958. The French franc, which had existed in various forms for centuries, was still the official currency of the nation, and coins like the 10 centime piece were a common sight in the hands of ordinary French citizens. At that time, the franc was subdivided into 100 centimes, just as the dollar is divided into cents, and the 10 centime coin played the role of small change that allowed for daily transactions such as paying for a baguette, a newspaper, or a metro ticket. These coins connected the French people to their economy in the most practical and immediate way. The 10 centime coin of 1988 belongs to the Marianne series, which had been in circulation since 1962. Marianne is not just a design, she is the embodiment of the French Republic. She is the female personification of liberty and reason, and a symbol of the Revolution of 1789. Marianne appears frequently on French coins, stamps, and government documents, always wearing a Phrygian cap, also known as the Liberté cap, which itself is a symbol of freedom dating back to Roman times. On the obverse of the 10 centime coin, we see her profile, serene yet determined, representing the enduring spirit of the Republic. By placing Marianne on everyday coins, France reminded its citizens constantly of the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the famous motto of the nation. The reverse of the coin carries a more functional but equally symbolic design. At the center is the denomination, 10 centimes, and around it the words Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, the national motto of France, which originated from the French Revolution and has since become one of the most recognizable political mottos in the world. Below the denomination is the year of issue, in this case, 1988, and surrounding the coin are laurel and wheat branches. These plants are not chosen at random. Laurel represents victory and glory, while wheat symbolizes agriculture and nourishment, both essential to the prosperity of France. The combination of Marianne, the motto, and these symbolic plants creates a coin design that is not only practical but also deeply patriotic. The coin itself is made of aluminum bronze, an alloy that gives it a golden appearance. This material was chosen because it was durable, affordable, and lightweight, making the coins easy to carry and resistant to wear. The 10 centime coin measured 19 millimeters in diameter and weighed about 3 grams, making it a small but distinct piece in the French coinage system. The smooth edges added to its simplicity and elegance. When you held one, you felt not only the lightness of the metal but also the weight of its meaning. In 1988, the coin circulated widely throughout France, but it was also used in the broader Francophone world. French currency had a legacy of being influential in countries that had once been French colonies, and the centime system was familiar to millions of people beyond France's borders. However, it is within France itself that this coin played its greatest role. For children receiving pocket money, for families shopping at the market, for commuters buying their morning croissant, the 10 centime coin was a daily companion. When we examine a coin like this today, decades after it was minted, it allows us to glimpse the economic situation of France in the late 1980s. That year, Francois Mitterrand was president, leading the country through a time of both modernization and challenges. The French economy was transitioning with the growing influence of the European Community, the precursor to the European Union, which France was a founding member of. Little did the citizens know in 1988 that just over a decade later, the franc would be replaced by the euro, and coins like the 10 centime piece would vanish from circulation. This makes the 1988 coin a piece of a world that no longer exists, a France that still used the franc and clung to its national currency as a symbol of sovereignty. Collectors today often look at coins like the 1988 10 centime not only for their design but also for their historical significance. While most 1988 coins were produced in very large quantities and thus are not rare in the traditional sense, they hold sentimental and educational value. They tell the story of everyday life in France before the euro, and for many French people, they are nostalgic reminders of childhood and the rhythm of daily commerce. A coin that was once so ordinary now serves as a bridge to memory. The story of the coin also reflects the artistry of French engraving. The Marianne series, designed by the talented engraver Henri Lagrefoul, was carefully crafted to embody the values of the Republic. Lagrefoul, who was a respected sculptor, managed to give Marianne's profile both classical beauty and modern relevance. His design endured for decades, a testament to its success in capturing the essence of France. When we look at the coin today, we can see how much thought went into its design, ensuring that it would resonate with millions of people while standing the test of time. It is fascinating to think about how many hands this coin passed through. Every coin has a life of its own, traveling from person to person, across cities and towns, through markets and shops. A 10 centime coin minted in 1988 might have been used by a student in Paris to buy a school snack, by a tourist in Nice to pay for a postcard, or by a farmer in Normandy to make change at a local fair. Each transaction, no matter how small, connected individuals to the broader economic and social fabric of France. Another interesting aspect is how the coin fits into the larger story of French money. The franc itself dates back to the Middle Ages, first appearing in the 14th century. Over the centuries, the franc evolved, surviving revolutions, wars, and regime changes. By the time of the 1988 coin, the franc was one of Europe's most respected currencies. However, in 2002, France transitioned fully to the euro, and the franc disappeared from circulation. Suddenly, the 10 centime coin of 1988 went from being a common object to being a relic of the past. For younger generations, it became a symbol of a currency they would never use, while for older generations, it became a reminder of how quickly the world can change. From a value perspective, most 1988 10 centime coins are worth little more than their face value or a small premium to collectors, especially in circulated condition. However, coins in uncirculated or proof condition, where they were never used and retain their original luster, can attract more interest among collectors. Still, their true value lies not in their monetary worth, but in their cultural and historical importance. When narrating the story of this coin, one must also reflect on how coins act as miniature works of art. Unlike paper money, which can carry detailed illustrations, coins must convey meaning in very limited space. The engraver's challenge is to capture the spirit of a nation on a surface barely 2 centimeters wide. The 1988 10 centime coin succeeds beautifully, balancing functionality with symbolism, simplicity with depth. Marianne's timeless face, the motto of the Republic, and the branches of laurel and wheat all come together in a design that is both elegant and meaningful. Even though the 10 centime coin no longer circulates, it continues to live on in collections, in memory, and in history. Each coin tells us something about the France of its time, a France that was proud of its revolutionary heritage, proud of its identity, and confident in its values. By studying the coin, we learn not only about the object itself but also about the people who used it, the artists who created it, and the society it represented. The 10 centime coin from France, dated 1988, may be small in size, but it is large in meaning. It is a window into a world that valued liberty, equality, and fraternity so much that it stamped these words on its money. It is a reminder that money is never just about economics, it is also about identity, pride, and history. And so, when you come across this little coin today, whether in a collection, at a flea market, or in an old drawer, take a moment to reflect on the countless lives it touched, the values it carried, and the France it represents. The next coin. The story of the 1999 one-penny coin from the United Kingdom is not only the story of a small copper-plated steel disc, but also a reflection of British tradition, monarchy, and the evolution of modern coinage. To the casual observer, the coin may appear ordinary, one of millions struck and spent in daily transactions. But when we take a closer look, we find layers of meaning, history, and significance embedded in its design, its metal, and its purpose within the British monetary system. The penny as a denomination has a history stretching back more than 1,000 years. The word itself comes from the Old English pennig, and by the time of Anglo-Saxon England, pennies were already the foundation of the monetary system. For centuries they were silver, hand-struck, and carried the portraits of kings and queens who ruled England. By the 19th and 20th centuries, pennies became larger bronze coins, heavy and iconic, bearing monarchs like Queen Victoria and later George V and George VI. After decimalization in 1971, the penny was redefined, becoming 1/100th of a pound sterling, and a new design was introduced, modernizing the denomination for contemporary Britain. By 1999, the penny coin had already been circulating in its decimalized form for almost 3 decades. The 1 pence coin that people held in their hands that year featured the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history at the time, whose image had appeared on every decimal coin since the system was introduced. On the obverse, or front side, of the coin, one could see her likeness, surrounded by her Latin titles. In 1999, the portrait in use was the 4th definitive portrait of the Queen, created by the sculptor Ian Rank Broadley. This effigy, introduced in 1998, was noticeably more realistic and less idealized than the earlier portraits. Unlike the youthful depictions of the Queen that graced the coins of the 1950s and 1960s or the regal but softened effigy of Raphael Makhlouf used from 1985 to 1997, Rank Broadley's design showed the Queen as she appeared in her 70s, with greater detail in the facial features and a stronger sense of maturity. Rank Broadley's decision to present the Queen in a frank and naturalistic style was both praised and debated at the time, but it ultimately became a defining image of the late reign of Elizabeth II. Around her portrait were the inscriptions, Elizabeth to DG Reg FD, followed by the year of issue, 1999. The abbreviation stands for Dei Gratia Regina Fide Defensor, meaning by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith, a traditional title of British monarchs since the reign of Henry VIII. For coin collectors, The 1999 issue is significant because it represents one of the first years to feature Rank Broadley's effigy, making it a part of a major transition in numismatic portraiture. Turning to the reverse of the coin, the design used in 1999 was the original decimal penny reverse introduced in 1971, created by Christopher Ironside, the artist who designed many of the decimal coin reverses. The image shows a crowned portcullis with chains, an emblem that has strong historical connections. The portcullis, a type of heavy gate once used in castles and fortresses, had long been a heraldic badge associated with the Palace of Westminster and the Houses of Parliament. As such, it symbolizes the authority of the British Parliament, law and governance. The crown above the portcullis adds a further layer of royal authority, uniting the monarchy and the government in a single symbol. Beneath this motif, the word one penny appears, with the denomination 1 placed prominently below the design. The portcullis design became instantly recognizable and remained in use for decades, appearing not only on the 1 penny coin but also becoming associated with British identity in the world of coinage. It is worth noting that the 1 penny and 2 pence coins were the only decimal coins to retain their original designs without change until the 2008 redesign of UK coinage under Matthew Dent. For this reason, the 1999 penny represents the continuity of tradition, linking the new millennium with the early years of decimalization. In terms of composition, the 1999 penny also tells an interesting story. When decimal coins were first introduced in 1971, the penny was struck in bronze, an alloy of copper, tin, and zinc. However, by the early 1990s, the rising cost of copper made it uneconomical to continue striking pennies in bronze. In 1992, the Royal Mint changed the composition of the penny and 2 pence coins to copper-plated steel. This change gave the coins a very similar appearance to the earlier bronze coins, but it drastically reduced production costs. The 1999 1 penny coin was therefore copper-plated steel, lighter in color when freshly minted but prone to showing its steel core if the copper plating wore down. Many people who handled pennies over the years may have noticed some coins showing silvery patches where the copper had been worn away. These were the steel-cored pennies introduced after 1992. The 1999 1 penny coin was struck at the Royal Mint, which at that time had its operations at Llantrisant, South Wales. By the late 20th century, the Royal Mint was one of the most advanced mints in the world, producing not only British coins but also coins for many other countries. Billions of pennies were struck for circulation, and while the 1 penny was a low-value coin, its sheer ubiquity made it a symbol of daily life. In shops, bus fares, and change jars, the penny was an essential part of everyday transactions. However, even in 1999, debates were beginning about the usefulness of the penny. Inflation had gradually eroded its value, and some argued that the 1 penny coin was no longer economically necessary. Nevertheless, tradition and public sentiment kept it in circulation, and it continues to exist today, though with much less purchasing power. For collectors and historians, this tension between tradition and practicality makes the penny an object of study in its own right. For numismatists, the 1999 penny is a coin that sits at an interesting crossroads. It belongs to the era of copper-plated steel coinage. It features one of the newest portraits of the Queen, and it was minted on the cusp of the new millennium. It is not rare in circulation. In fact, millions were struck, and circulated examples are worth only their face value. Yet, pristine uncirculated specimens, or those included in mint sets, carry a small premium among collectors. They are often sought after by those assembling complete runs of Queen Elizabeth II coinage, especially those focusing on the different effigies of the monarch. Culturally, the coin carries resonance as well. 1999 was a year of anticipation, as Britain and the world prepared for the new millennium. Coins struck that year were used by millions of people in their everyday lives, and many of those pennies would cross into the year 2000, becoming the pocket change of a new century. For some collectors, owning a 1999 penny is a way of holding on to that moment in time when the 20th century ended and the 21st began. The design continuity of the coin also reinforces a sense of stability in British life. Throughout decades of social, political, and technological change, the penny remained largely unchanged, reminding citizens of the enduring presence of the monarchy and parliament. For Queen Elizabeth II, the penny was one of the many coins that bore her likeness across her reign, a reign in which she appeared on more coins than any other monarch in history. Her portrait on the 1999 penny thus forms part of a vast visual record of her reign, preserved in metal. There is also a human aspect to the story of this coin. For many children in Britain, the penny was their first encounter with money, saved in piggy banks, exchanged at school tuck shops, or counted out carefully in small purchases. In 1999, a penny still held enough value to be part of meaningful transactions, though modest ones. For those growing up in that era, the coppery shine of the penny evokes memories of everyday life, making it more than just currency but also a piece of personal history. In wider economic terms, the penny illustrates the challenge of maintaining low-denomination coinage in modern economies. The decision to change the composition to copper-plated steel was a practical solution to the rising cost of copper, but it also highlighted the vulnerability of coinage to fluctuations in metal prices. The 1999 penny is therefore not just a token of exchange but also a marker of the economic strategies employed by the Royal Mint and the Treasury to maintain viable currency. The endurance of the penny as a denomination also speaks to cultural identity. In Britain, phrases like "a penny for your thoughts" or "in for a penny," "in for a pound" keep the denomination alive in language even as its monetary value shrinks. The 1999 penny thus has a symbolic worth far beyond its face value, representing thrift, tradition, and continuity. For collectors today, finding a 1999 one-penny coin in perfect condition may not be particularly difficult, but it is still rewarding. Proof versions of the coin, struck with special techniques for collector sets, display the design in sharp detail and mirror-like surfaces, turning an everyday coin into an object of beauty. These proof coins were produced in limited numbers and are cherished by those who value numismatic artistry. Ultimately, the 1999 one-penny coin is more than just a piece of metal. It is a story of monarchy, with the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II connecting it to the centuries-old tradition of royal effigies on coins. It is a story of parliament and governance, through the portcullis design that links it to the seat of British democracy. It is a story of economics, reflecting changes in metal composition and debates about the relevance of low-value coinage. And it is a story of culture, symbolizing everyday life, memory, and language in Britain. When we hold a 1999 penny, we hold not just a coin but a piece of history, a small, unassuming object that carries with it the legacy of centuries and the atmosphere of its time. Though millions were struck and most are worth only their face value, each coin has its own journey, passing through countless hands, playing a role in countless stories, and linking the individual lives of ordinary people to the great currents of national history. That is what makes the 1999 one-penny coin so fascinating, and why even the smallest coins deserve a place in our study of the past. The next coin. The 1961 United States 5-cent coin, commonly known as the Jefferson nickel, holds a special place in American coinage history. At first glance, it may appear as just another small coin used in everyday transactions, but when we dig deeper, we discover a story that connects American history, design artistry, and the values of the nation itself. The 1961 Jefferson nickel represents not just a piece of currency, but also a piece of America's heritage during a time of change, optimism, and transition in the mid-20th century. The 5-cent coin had already been in circulation for decades by 1961, but its journey began much earlier. The nickel as we know it was first introduced in 1866, following the Civil War. Before this period, 5-cent coins were minted in silver and known as half dimes. However, because silver was a precious metal and the government wanted to conserve it for larger denominations, a new base metal coin was created. This new coin was made from a copper-nickel alloy, giving it the name nickel. Over the years, the design of the 5-cent coin changed, with various motifs representing different aspects of American identity. By 1938, the United States Mint introduced the design we now recognize as the Jefferson nickel. It was chosen through a national design competition to honor Thomas Jefferson, the nation's third president and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The winning design was created by Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor. Schlag's design would remain the face of the nickel for decades, including the coins minted in 1961. On the obverse, or front, of the 1961 Jefferson nickel, we see a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson. His stern yet thoughtful expression was meant to capture his role as a statesman and intellectual. Around the edge of the coin are the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," on the left and "Liberty" on the right, followed by the year 1961. The inclusion of liberty reflects one of the nation's founding principles, and its placement alongside Jefferson's portrait emphasizes his role in securing and defending that ideal. The reverse, or back, of the coin features an image of Monticello, Jefferson's estate in Virginia. Monticello was not only Jefferson's home but also a symbol of his architectural vision and his contributions to American culture. The word Monticello appears prominently beneath the image, while above it are the Latin words "e pluribus unum," meaning "out of many, one." This motto symbolizes the unity of the states into a single nation. Below the building are the words 5 cents and United States of America. This design provided the coin with a simple but powerful identity, one that was both practical for circulation and meaningful in its symbolism. By 1961, the Jefferson nickel had already been in production for over 20 years. During that time, the coin became a familiar sight in pockets, purses, and cash registers across America. It was used for everything from buying a loaf of bread to paying for a bus ride, and it became a constant companion of everyday life. The year 1961 was also significant historically. John F. Kennedy had just taken office as the 35th President of the United States, ushering in a new era of optimism and progress. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and America was positioning itself at the forefront of global leadership during the Cold War. Against this backdrop, even a small coin like the nickel carried meaning, representing stability in a rapidly changing world. When it comes to the technical details, the 1961 Jefferson nickel was struck at two different mints, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark, while those struck in Denver bore the letter D on the reverse side to the right of Monticello. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 76 million nickels in 1961, while the Denver Mint struck more than 229 million. In total, over 305 million nickels were minted that year, making the 1961 issue quite common in circulation. The coin was composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it durability for everyday use. It measured 21.2 millimeters in diameter and weighed 5 grams, consistent with the specifications established for the Jefferson nickel series. The edge of the coin was plain, without reading or inscriptions. Because of its common circulation and sturdy metal content, many of these coins still survive today, often found in coin collections, inherited rolls, or even change jars in households across the country. Collectors often view the 1961 Jefferson nickel with a particular interest. While circulated examples are common and hold little more than face value, higher-grade uncirculated coins can be quite desirable. Coins minted in Denver that year, especially those in pristine condition with sharp details and brilliant luster, are valued more highly due to the way they were struck. Additionally, the 1961 Jefferson nickel is known for having some die varieties and striking issues, such as weak steps on Monticello or doubled die errors. The most famous variety is the full steps designation, referring to the visibility of the steps on the front of Monticello. When fully struck, the steps appear clearly defined, but due to wear on the dies or weaker strikes, many nickels lack this detail. Coins with full steps are significantly rarer and command a premium among collectors. For many Americans, the 1961 nickel is not just about its monetary value but also about nostalgia. People who grew up in the 1960s may remember buying candy, soda, or comic books with just a few nickels. It was a time when small coins went further in everyday purchases, and the nickel was part of the cultural fabric of life. Parents and grandparents may recall saving nickels in jars or teaching children how to count money using these coins. In this sense, the 1961 Jefferson nickel is not just a piece of metal, it is a reminder of a time and place in American history. The Jefferson nickel design, including the 1961 issue, remained largely unchanged for decades. However, in 2004 and 2005, the U.S. Mint issued special designs to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, which Jefferson had commissioned. Then, in 2006, the Mint introduced a new portrait of Jefferson on the obverse, giving the nickel a fresh look while still honoring the original intent. Despite these changes, the 1961 version represents a long-standing chapter in the coin's history, a period when stability and tradition were valued in coinage design. The value of a 1961 nickel today depends on its condition and rarity. Circulated coins are typically worth only their face value of 5 cents, though they may hold sentimental value. Uncirculated coins, particularly those with the full steps designation, can be worth several dollars or more depending on the grade. For example, a 1961-D nickel in mint state with full steps can fetch prices in the hundreds of dollars at auction. This makes the coin a popular choice for collectors who enjoy the challenge of finding high-quality examples among millions of common ones. Beyond the numismatic details, the 1961 Jefferson nickel also reflects the ideals of the United States. The inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberté," and "E Pluribus Unum" highlight values such as faith, freedom, and unity. The portrait of Jefferson reminds us of the nation's founding principles and the enduring importance of leadership and vision. The image of Monticello ties the coin to a tangible piece of American history, an architectural symbol that represents Jefferson's intellect and creativity. Together, these elements make the coin more than just currency, They make it a story in metal. The 1961 Jefferson nickel reminds us of how coins serve as miniature time capsules. While they are practical tools of trade, they also capture moments in history, design trends, and cultural values. The Jefferson nickel, in particular, bridges the early days of the American Republic with the modern era, linking Jefferson's 18th century legacy with the lives of people in the 20th century. Holding a 1961 nickel today is like holding a piece of that story in your hand. For collectors, historians, and casual observers alike, the 1961 5-cent coin from the United States is a fascinating piece. It tells us about the evolution of coinage, the artistry of design, the values of a nation, and the everyday experiences of millions of Americans. Whether preserved in pristine condition in a collector's album or resting in a dusty change jar, the coin continues to hold meaning. It speaks to the endurance of American traditions, the significance of its leaders, and the ways in which even the smallest objects can carry the weight of history. In conclusion, the 1961 United States 5-cent Liberty coin, known as the Jefferson nickel, is more than just a piece of money. It is a lasting tribute to Thomas Jefferson, a reflection of America's ideals, and a snapshot of the nation during a pivotal moment in history. From its design and production to its role in daily life and collecting, the 1961 nickel remains a coin worth remembering, studying, and appreciating. It is a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories. Goodbye.